So Pax8, you've recently raised, I think it's $185 million. So the obvious place to start would be what are the main investment plans for that money?
Good question. It's a lot of money to deploy. I think we kind of have a number of different ambitions for the capital raise, and this is Series G, so we've had a number of previous rounds as well, which have kind of helped propel us to this point. I think, as with a lot of venture capital, it really is about the options it opens up in terms of the different pathways in front of you as a fast-growing organization. In the context of Pax8, there's kind of a number of different things that we're really interested in. One of which is further acquisitions. We've made a number of acquisitions over the last 18 months across the world, largely to help with our international expansion. We also see an opportunity for technology tuck-ins as well in the future. So, to be more acquisitive through M&A is certainly one option with the investment. The second really is about runway. I think that we are in an ever more uncertain time. As we record this today, the Ukraine war continues on, and frankly probably will for some time. Inflation is running as hot as it ever has. I think the highest print since the 1960s in Germany just on Friday at around 9%. Annually, similar in the UK at the moment and in the US. So I think there's a shift in the cost of capital in the markets, and I think our board were smart enough to see that coming and felt that we really wanted to make sure that we had a suitable war chest to weather whatever came and to continue with this incredibly fast growing journey that we're on, which you need capital to support. But ultimately, probably the most important of the three is the final one, which is about doubling down on the quality of our platform and our marketplace. So what's made Pax8 really special is our people and the way we show up, but also our product. We're very different in our market in that we're a technology business as opposed to a kind of traditional distributor, and investing in a product at that sort of deeply technical level is a very costly thing to do. So where a lot of that money is going to go is on engineering. Frankly, it's on making sure that the new and the next in our product and our feature set is coming to market as quickly and as effectively as possible.
Okay, and in terms of the various sort of components of your ecosystem, so the sort of partners you work with, I guess your staff, and then maybe the sort of technology how will they what will they notice in terms of this investment? Will it be over a period of time, or will there be a sudden sort of uptick in activities? Just how people will notice what you're doing, I guess.
I think it's more of the same, honestly. I think this raise is incremental. It's consistent in percentage terms with the scale of the business from a turnover perspective as with previous rounds. This raise was simply to enable us to continue on our extremely rapid trajectory. For people watching this, we're 4 years in a row in the Inc. 500 in the US, fastest growing companies in North America, which is extremely unusual to do 4 years in a row. I think there's only it puts us in a camp with Intel and Google and the likes, because as the denominator gets bigger, obviously it's harder to keep the percentage growth at those levels. That needs capital, right, to grow at that speed. And so, I think in terms of those three constituents you mentioned, from our partners' perspective, they're going to continue to see a best of breed platform and an amazing team of Pax8’s sort of supporting them through everything that they need. We've got a lot of really exciting product developments coming, which really take it to the next level, and we think will become a kind of category defining change in many ways, but can't talk too much about that now. But there's lots coming there, and that be a kind of continuation of the history we've had in terms of breaking new ground and releasing those things to market. I think for our team, for our employees, international expansion, I think been very successful launching in the UK and Europe, and we just now about 2 weeks ago announced our launch into APAC with an office in Brisbane. So I think for our team, really sort of conquering the world is the story. It's about spreading our wings beyond our Denver heritage and really showing up in all the markets where we've had demand from our customers, and it seems like that's pretty much everywhere. So that's probably the most meaningful change for our team. And from the technology solutions, ultimately we're all about creating the world's favorite marketplace to connect customers with the vendors. So I think the tech solutions, it kind of comes down to what's going on in the wider industry, the evolution of proliferation of SaaS software and all of the kind of tools and systems that MSPs and their customers rely upon every day, that, the IT needs of the small business ultimately. So, I think for us, it's more about showcasing what's brilliant that's out there rather than trying to create competing product. But this will enable us to just continue to do that and to kind of amplify that in all the right ways.
Okay, and in terms of your focus on the SMB space, is there anything particular they might see in terms of developing your marketplace and solutions for that particular sector of the market?
I think, we're really fixated on SMB, which is something that's quite unusual. Everybody in technology is always obsessed by the enterprise and kind of trying to move up market. We love the long tail. We're really, really good at it. And we've built, a multi-billion-dollar business just being the best at that, right? And I think that's something that we're proud of and we're going to continue to focus on. So I suppose my message would be, if you're in that segment and you're working with us, don't worry, we're not about to, leverage this raise and go up market like so many technology vendors before us have. What's funny is we're starting to see the mid-market and the enterprise sort of sniff around because they can see what we're doing is really compelling. But that's, if it works for them, that's great. We're not going to turn them away, but that's not our focus, right? Like for us, it's about how do we meet the needs of the MSP who we feel have been underserved by this industry for some time, and create the best marketplace that enables MSPs and their customers to buy, deploy, manage, the cutting edge software that enables their businesses to do more. So the focus now and in the future remains SMB. It's something the board are very, very clear on and we're all committed to.
In terms of the conditions, you already alluded to the war in Ukraine, for example, but I guess we can say we're just about post-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So both for yourselves and your customers, interested how that world looks, and maybe if it's not too greedy, sort of the part two is the other sort of issues. We talked about the war, but obviously energy prices, the geopolitics, supply chain challenges we've all been, I think, aware of, with China shutting down for long periods, etc. So just your thoughts on what the post-pandemic new world looks like for both yourselves as a company and, as I say, for your customers.
Sure. I mean, I think for us, I think in many ways everybody, including us, is still figuring it out. I think that this idea of full remote for everybody, always felt like a bit of a rubber band to me, and it feels like that's pinging back a little bit as people realize that human beings are kind of tribal and we like to be in the same place as each other, and there's a whole kind of thing that happens when you put people in the same room that doesn't happen on a Zoom call, right? So I think we're going through that now. I think if I look at our offices all over the world, they're in different states in terms of how kind of active they are as a base, again, for people to come and collaborate and participate in what we do. So I think there's this ongoing kind of tension in a lot of businesses about, do we make people come back? Do we encourage them to come back? Do we tell them not to come back? Do we need an office? Don't we? I really don't think many people have figured that out yet in terms of their kind of final form. So we're going through that as well. For us, it's about, trying different things and kind of listening to the team, but also kind of nudging people a little bit, because habits are hard to break. And sometimes you need to, remind people how great actually being together can be. Perhaps without forcing them to commute 5 days a week, right? So finding that kind of balance, and tech enables that. So, one thing we've rolled out, for example, is something called Robin, which is a kind of hot desking and desk hoteling piece of software. So you can book a desk in any of our offices and see who else is in, and, a way of kind of creating that experience for people. I think tools and systems like that are part of that evolution when it comes to the kind of post-pandemic working world. On geopolitics, maybe we'll leave that for another interview. But we've got a team in Ukraine who took up arms. It was incredibly emotional for the whole company watching that happen. They've been amazing. They continue to deliver throughout. Somehow, we did a match fundraise with our partners where we matched dollar for dollar, and got a great response. So, I think that all we can do as responsible corporate citizens is support the right causes, whatever you feel they are, and we're certainly doing that, and we'll continue to in this conflict, and sadly, no doubt others that may follow in the years ahead. On the supply chain front, I don't think it's impacted IT on the SaaS side that adversely. It's more of a hardware story. I think China have just started to ease their most recent restrictions, but there's a knock-on effect there for the hardware supply chain. So again, I think MSPs, people in the kind of IT world, will be wrestling with that for a while. More laptops and screens and all the kind of difficulties around that stuff. How can people address these uncertainties? I think a lot of it is about just thinking about risk in a more pragmatic way and being ready for anything. I think the pandemic caught a lot of people, frankly, pretty flat-footed. If you take remote working, the tools to provide a first-class remote working experience aren't new. They've been around for quite a while, actually. Progressive technology businesses like us just picked our laptops up on the day we shut the offices and went home, and everything just carried on pretty much as normal, without having to do anything. For a vast majority of our customers, right, most of whom come through partner, that was not the case, and there was a lot of catching up to do there. So I suppose that would really be the message: is just be prepared for whatever disruption may come ahead, and that means make sure you've got first-class technology solutions in place ahead of time that enable you to deal with whatever comes, right? If it's your whole team working from another country for a month, or whatever it might be. I think just technology affords us this incredible flexibility if we deploy it in the right way. If I look at our base, so much of it is the managed service provider, and those are the guys and girls that are just amazing at helping businesses solve those challenges. So that's probably where I would focus. If you're watching this and wondering, well, what do I do? Speak to a great MSP and get some advice, and just make sure you're prepared.
Okay, and one thing I didn't mention, which is, again, sort of predates the pandemic, but sustainability has been on many people's agenda. I guess, shall we say, there was a bit of a sort of greenwashing lip service phase, and now people seem to be kicking up to actually, taking it more seriously. What are you finding, I guess, as a business, what you're maybe doing around that? And also, are you getting customers saying to you, can you tell us more about, the ethics, if you like, behind the solutions you're offering, your supply chains and stuff?
Yeah, look, it's definitely climbing on the agenda, which I think is fantastic to see. On a personal note, I chair the board and co-founded something called ecology.com, which is a platform to fund the world's best climate crisis solutions. And we planted about 80 million trees in 2 years on behalf of our partners. Pax8 uses the platform, to offset carbon and fund reforestation. I think those types of solutions are becoming table stakes for any company, and their customers and their teams are starting to demand and frankly expect that those measures are in place. So yes, sustainability is absolutely on the agenda more increasingly. I think people will choose suppliers based on their sustainability credentials. I think staff, members of teams, will choose their employment based on the sustainability credentials of a company. And it does feel to me like in the last sort of 12 months, really, there has been this sort of pendulum shift of consciousness around this issue. And it does feel like it's becoming, really a mandatory requirement for business in, as we move into the next sort of 10 years cycle, to have your house in order when it comes to sustainability. So yeah, as a starter for 10, whatever you're doing, get to climate positive, right? Get to neutral. You can do that relatively easily using platforms like the one I helped create and others like it. And then think about what more you could do, right? Like, could you plant a tree for every product you sell? Could you buy a ton of carbon offset for every new customer? Like, get creative with it. And you can use that, in a way to drive your employer brand, to drive your marketing message, and it pays for itself. So it's one of those really rare situations in business at the moment where the right thing to do is also like the commercial thing to do. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of get to do good and it pays for itself. So Yeah, as you can, as you've gathered from what I've told you about my background, this is something I care deeply about. So I'm just delighted everybody else is starting to kind of get there. And I think there's some murmurings that the SEC are going to put some mandatory environmental reporting into public company regulation in the US. And if they do that, it will be a watershed moment, I think, for the future of sustainability.
Okay. And in terms of the future, which we discuss is fairly sort of, well, there's opportunities and challenges, I guess. Emerging technologies, are there any particular things? I mean, I guess we're familiar with where the cloud is and AI and stuff, but are there any ones you sort of pick out that people need to be aware of? And again, I'm asking all these supplementaries for your sort of channel partners. What are the opportunities? Where do you see some of those opportunities?
I mean, emerging tech is always an interesting area. I think there's a couple of things, I suppose, that are still sort of floating around. I really like Gartner's model, the technology hype cycle. I just think that always captures what happens with new technology quite well. The trough of disillusionment, right, is often where things kind of live for a bit before they come out onto the plateau of productivity, where we actually start using them en masse. So I think one of the things that continues to be in everybody's minds but hasn't found that plateau yet is the AR, VR, MR world. So Microsoft continues to develop HoloLens. Apple eventually will do some sort of AR, everybody thinks. Meta have changed their name to focus on, the future of that business. I'm sure that's the only reason they changed their name. So, I think there's something there, definitely. It's definitely, it will be really interesting in lots of ways. It will create lots of opportunity. For those that have Oculus headsets from Meta can already have meetings in VR. Some of our team do that. Sometimes they say it's good, feels a bit bleeding edge to me still for most people, but it does work and it's there and it's not that expensive. I think that's an area to keep an eye on and will create opportunity, definitely. On the AI ML side, that is very much in the products and services that we use today and has kind of faded into the background a bit. It's development continues at breakneck speed. I think for most people, where AI will show up is the products and services you use will just get better and you won't necessarily know why, and that's okay. I think things like recommendation and optimization of various types of services are possible as a result of mature machine learning. Or maybe you'll have to get go and have an X-ray and some amazing algorithm will do the radiography for you and you won't even know, right? So there's things like that are going to kind of show up and again, do create opportunity. But I think for most businesses, it's about looking for the new products and services that take advantage of those technologies rather than trying to use the technologies themselves, particularly in the kind of MSP and cloud distribution space. What else is there? I suppose this we talked a bit about the sustainability thing. This idea of clean tech is definitely sticking around. I think that there are a number of fast growing, kind of segment of impact investment funds who will only back things that they qualify as clean tech. So I think we're going to see more funding go into those types of projects, which means we're going to see more interesting technology developments come from them. I recently was at a conference for around impact investment in Germany, and there was a guy there who's leading a fairly well-funded company working on fission, right? Working on the next phase of energy. He's pretty confident that someone's going to do it. He thinks it'll take 50 to 70 years, so that's probably a bit further out. But he also says that in the gap in the middle, there's this need for, the next generation of nuclear and progression with wind and solar and all this kind of stuff. So I think clean tech and energy is another area just to keep an eye on, quite interesting. What does that mean for the MSP and the kind of mid-market IT world? Who knows, right? But I just think it's an opportunity and something to keep an eye on. So yeah, those are probably the three things just to kind of continue to keep tabs on.
And I can't not ask about 5G and Edge. I mean, are we in that trough of disillusionment you said at the moment? Yeah, that it's been talked about for a while and perhaps isn't quite delivering what everyone thought it would, or Or do you think it will have ultimately the impact that is, it's being suggested, or will it again just sort of find various places to improve existing processes, or will it revolutionize whole industries and ways of work?
For me, the latter. I think mobile connectivity is going to continue to get faster and cheaper, inevitably. We've now got things like Starlink from SpaceX that provide high-speed internet into remote parts of the world at fairly low cost. Like, ultimately, the trend in all of this technology is towards marginal cost, right? Like, it's just, that's the way technology works. So I think over time, cheaper, faster, better is kind of what you can expect to see from mobile connectivity. In the context of 5G and edge computing, does that like revolutionize the experience for most people? I don't think so, personally. A lot of the marketing fluff around 5G was around sensor nets and connected cities, and your washing machine being able to order detergent when it runs out of stuff. And with all respect to amazing marketeers in the world, a lot of that stuff was just nonsense. Like it was stuff that was either already possible without 5G or wasn't really going to change the world in a meaningful way. So it might happen, but no one will really notice. And so I think people attribute this quote to Bill Gates. I'm sure lots of people have said it, but we often overestimate change in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. And I think that's true here as well. Like, I think the iterative steps with mobile connectivity are never going to be like this sort of staircase of progress that people talk about, but the trend is definitely there, right? And as connectivity gets faster, as latency gets better, and coverage, because still a lot of people don't get mobile signal in their own houses, let's not forget, as that all improves, it will steadily increase the opportunity. But I don't think there's this like big moment in the next 12 months where mobile steps up a level and everybody gets excited, personally.
No, that's fair enough. I always think that because where I am, sometimes I don't even get 4G, I get 3G or whatever. So it does make me chuckle whenever they're talking about 5G as if it's going to solve all our problems overnight.
Yeah.
And in terms of, I think up at the top of the interview you mentioned about further acquisitions and stuff like that. I'm sure you're not going to tell me what you've got your eyes on, but I know you, for example, you have recently announced that I guess there's a partnership, I know, deal with Domots around network monitoring. So I'd be interested in that, and if there are any other sort of recent partnerships, acquisitions that you think are worth flagging up.
Yeah, so the Domots partnership is adding another great vendor to our line card. So one of the things that's a bit different about us is we're extremely selective about the vendors we include. We don't want it to be this sort of graveyard of products where people have to kind of fish around for the one that's actually worth using. Like, we really want to make sure that every product that we put in front of our partners is of the highest possible quality. And as a result, we have this sort of, I think it's 170 step onboarding process that our vendor team goes through, which is pretty time consuming. But once we get out the other side, we like to really try and commit to the partnership and make sure that it's worth it for the vendor, for us, and ultimately for the customer. So yeah, the Domots deal, it's great to see that added to the platform. That kind of network monitoring and security side of the world is extremely hot right now, and so giving people more solutions to meet those needs is timely. I think we have a kind of laundry list of vendors who desperately want to be on the platform, as you can imagine, right? Because of what it opens up for them in terms of the addressable market. And so there'll be a steady stream of best in breed tech solutions being added to the platform over the coming year. Can't talk too much about anything specific there, but we're meeting the needs of the market, right? So at the moment, security is definitely one of those areas. So I think you expect to see more kind of security focused products show up over the coming months. I think beyond that, again, I can't really go into too many specifics about targets or anything like that, but I think that just those kind of three areas I spoke about at the top of the interview remain our focus, right? So international expansion, technology tuck-ins, things that create value add for our customers. So an amazing new product or feature that might, give our platform something it doesn't currently do, or maybe an acqui-hire for an amazing engineering team to help bolster our ranks there. Or, are probably the things that will be most exciting for people.
And I guess looking at your sort of backstory, it'd be fair to assume moving forwards that if you're not slowing down, then there will be acquisitions at various stages. But maybe as we finish, it would be good to understand. You've obviously got yourself a channel ecosystem, but for folks that are either already with you and maybe learning the ropes, or for folks looking at what one or two things you'd advise them when they're assessing the opportunities to look for with yourselves and others, and how to decide where to go for their solutions that they're going to be offering to their end users.
So I think really ultimately it all comes down to people. I think it's easy for businesses like ours to think it's all about the product. I think the product's really important, and our product, I believe, is the best in the market, and objectively people seem to agree, which is great, and that's part of why we're successful. But without people, it's nothing. And so, all I would say really is, make sure that the product gives you what you need, and then find a team who you like working with, who you trust, who understand the needs of your business, and frankly understand the future of it too. I mean, one of the things that we've done is we've developed something called a partner transformation program, which is about helping essentially coach MSPs on how to build a great business. It's got very little to do with technology. That's the sort of thing that I think really speaks to our, focusing inward for a moment, and speaks to our understanding of what it means to run a managed service provider. And we've got people on our executive team that have previously run MSPs, and I think that sort of experience is what really I would be looking for if I was on the customer side. If I was looking for someone in the kind of cloud marketplace game, I'd be thinking, okay, I need speeds and feeds, right? I need the right vendors. I need the product to work. I need great PSA integrations to make my billing easy, but frankly, really everybody should do that now. They don't yet, but eventually they probably all will, right? But so then what else is there? What's the professional services mix like? How can they help me add value for my customers in different ways? What other products and services are there I might be able to bundle up to help create incremental margin opportunity? And really, do I like these people? At the end of the day, I think it's all about the human experience and the person on the other end of the phone or keyboard. So that's probably not a revelation of any kind, but that's probably where I'd end, right? Is just make sure that you find a team you can trust and that you can work closely with over the years ahead.
That's brilliant. It's been great to chat. So Robert, thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.